German food is probably the best food in the world, if not close second, because German food is just, it'll fill you up and it'll keep you full for a long time. And that's a good thing, unless you go to 2 meal appointments in a row. But they have anywhere from bratwursts, which are much better than American hot dogs. They have a lot with potatoes. They make mashed potatoes. They have these things called knödel, which are basically little kind of potato dumplings, which are way tasty with some gravy. They have what's called rotkohl, which is this kind of red cabbage kind of thing. They don't really serve it. I don't think I've seen it yet in America since I've been back. This was so good. They have schnitzel. Now a schnitzel and Wiener Schnitzel isn't a hot dog, guys. Wiener Schnitzel is like, it's basically either pork or chicken that's kind of been pounded down and breaded, and you eat it with what's called Jägersoße, which quite literally means hunter sauce, but it's kind of this mushroom kind of creamy sauce, and that with like just some French fries or just some Spätzle, which is kind of this potato noodle. Oh, now I'm just getting hungry because like these are just, yeah, German food is just amazing. And the German people, they're really sincere, and they're really just matter of fact and very kind of straight-laced. Punctuality is a huge thing for them, which means they're pretty much always punctual, which is good, or early. And they're hardworking people. And something that stood out to me with the Germans is they will, like, everything's closed, pretty much everything's closed on Sundays. Things close a lot earlier in Germany than they do here in America, which we may sometimes think, well, that's kind of inconvenient, but it's because the Germans all go home to spend time with their family. They're like, all right, like, we're done. Like, the reason I work is so I can care for my family, so I'm going to go home and spend time with my family. So for them, they really love their families. They really make sure that they're all taken care of. If you have a child in Germany, you get paid to, one, you get paid to have the child. Two, if you're the mom, you get, I think like 2 years off of like paid work or something. Maybe it was only 1.5 years of like paid like off time. And then as a dad, you can also apply for that because you're like, oh, I had a kid, like I got to go home, take care of it. And I'm like, all right, well, like save your spot in your job and like let you go for, I don't know how long, but you still get paid for that too up until a point. So it's just because I guess they just really want, kind of family in Germany. So Cologne is up in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, which is kind of in the middle of Germany. And in German, it's actually called Köln. And so a lot of people there actually speak a specific dialect called Kölsch, but it's mostly the older generation. And so, for instance, there's a phrase in German which is immer gut gegangen, which just means it's always gone well, things will work out. And in Kölsch, it's immer gut gegangen. And so they basically just take the G and turn it into a Y sound. It's really interesting. So you can always tell if someone's Kölsch if they say gut instead of gut, which just means good. They have a very famous cathedral there. It's called the Cologne Cathedral, or in German, der Kölner Dom. And it's only about $3 to go to the top. I recommend it. Way fun. Way pretty. You can go inside for free. Cologne is incredibly spread out. It's got about 2 million people in it. It's huge, and it's just very spread out. There's not a whole lot of tall buildings, but it just keeps going and keeps going. You'll be in parts where you think you're not in Cologne anymore because it'll have a different name, but it'll be Chorweiler Köln, like it's part of this Cologne area. The people there are pretty diverse. A lot of the people there are very open, very different, they're a lot different than people in the South. In the South, a lot of people are more conservative, and up in Cologne, they're a little bit of everything. And they say in Kölsch, jede Ecke ist anders, which means quite literally means like every crazy is a little different, but because everybody is just really interesting there. They celebrate a huge holiday for them. It's called Fasching or Carnival, and everybody, the entire city. I wasn't there for it, unfortunately, but I've seen pictures, and I was somewhere else when it happened. But everybody, the entire town dresses up like Halloween, and they just have this huge parade. Everyone gets wasted and drunk, but the public transportation in Cologne is humongous. You can get almost anywhere on either a streetcar or a bus or take trains. It takes about an hour to get anywhere, so make sure you plan ahead for that. The weather can go anywhere from really hot to pretty cold. I served there in the middle of summer, pretty much. I served there from about May until it's about September. And in June and July, it's just way hot. You're in this little bit of a dip right next to the river, the Rhine, which is also a pretty river. And it's just humid and hot, and then it'll rain one day and it'll be really cold, and the next day it'll be hot again, and then everything is just super humid, and then you're sitting in train cars with all these other people. Germans don't believe in air conditioning. Some places have it, but if you're lucky, but when you're sitting at home, you're just gonna kind of fry. So, or boil, I guess, because it's so humid. With crime in Cologne, I don't feel like there's a whole lot going on. You're not really allowed to own a gun in Germany, and if you are, it's incredibly controlled. So that's never really been much of a problem. There's a lot of diversity in Cologne. There's a lot of people from all over the world. There's a university there, so there's a lot of students. It's a huge demographic, it's just a whole lot of students. The prices there, if you're closer to the center of the city, the prices will go up because all the tourists are there. There's a lot of tourists in Cologne. They all want to see the big cathedral. They're also famous for their perfume, which is cologne from Cologne, but it's called actually Kölnisch Wasser, which just means like water from Cologne. So it's this little, I actually use it every time I shave, but pigeons, they're everywhere. Just don't kick a pigeon. The transportation system is pretty crazy. A lot of it all comes to the center. We had a card that covered our entire area as well as parts of other people's areas that we would use to travel whenever we needed to. And usually how it works is you just have it on your person, and every so often when you're sitting on the train, when you're sitting on the train, they'll have people come in with little kind of, I guess, either computer things or almost like a kind of ticket checkers. We just call them ticket checkers. And they'd come and this be like, can I see your ticket? You just show them that. And depending on who it was, they'd either just nod or they'd scan it and make sure, and they look at it and give it back to you. And if you get caught without a ticket anywhere in Germany, it's 40 euro. So always have a ticket. And those tickets usually don't work until 9 in the morning. So if you go anywhere early, make sure you buy a ticket. The housing, I lived on the 9th floor, which is actually technically the 10th floor, because Germans, they have the earth floor is just number 1. Floor number 1 to us is floor number 0 to them, or just E, which counts as the earth floor. And then everything after that is 1 through however high the building goes. And we were on floor 9. We were actually in basically a student's residence. It was anywhere from students to old people, and we had a door that didn't close all the way in our bathroom because we had the washer outside, and then the tubes went into the bathtub from and it's just kind of funny because it just wrapped around the door. And my companion, when I walked in, he said, "Well, welcome to Cologne. We have an open door policy here." So I was just, it's pretty packed in Cologne. There's a lot of people, so there's a lot of different houses, and they usually just keep stacking them, and they're all really small compared to living here in America. Everything, I didn't know that I've always heard the phrase, everything's bigger in America, but then when you go to Europe, you realize why, because everything there is just small. The streets are tighter, the houses are tighter, there's a lot more used with each space because they don't have as much space to work with. And so you walk in a room and you open up one door and you have to close that door before you can open up another door, kind of a thing, depending on where you're at. And it's just always just spread out and just stacked up as high as they can. In Cologne, there's a place in most German cities, they have what's called the Fußgängerzone, which is basically just this market street it's basically called the pedestrian zone. You can't drive a car on there unless you're delivering something to a company or something. And they just have shops on every side of anything you can name. They've got all these, European brands. They've even got Burger Kings, like McDonald's. And on this pedestrian zone, if you're coming from the actual main train station, because it starts right there and it goes all the way until it's quite long in Cologne. They're not always this long, but this one just goes. And if it's somewhere in the middle, it's right next to CNA, kind of on that stretch, and it's this little place that sells French fries. Now, for us in America, we usually don't eat French fries unless we're eating it with a burger or hot dogs or something. But in Germany, they call it Pommes. And what they give you is they just give you this huge cone thing, and they just put all these fries in it. They're all like thick fries. And then they give you a different sauce, and then you eat it with a little fork. And right there, I don't know what it's called. I think it was just called like some Pommes place, and it was just really great. They have this really special sauce. It's called like Yopi Soße or something. But if you go to Cologne, I recommend it. Another thing that's actually pretty culturally popular in Germany overall is what they call a Döner. And basically I think there is an American kind of equivalent. But anyway, so they've got this big old thing of just basically a bunch of piles of meat on one big kebab. and then it rotates around a heater. And it's a lot of people that usually work at these places are from Turkey or from Romania or anywhere in East Europe that have immigrated here. But it is apparently originally German. And they just have this big thing of meat, and you order something, they take like a little kind of bun, and they'll either, if you get a really nice one or a traditional one, they'll slice it off with a little kind of sword kind of knife. But a lot of people, they just have what looks like a hair razor, and they just shave off all this meat. They put it on, so you've got all these shred things of meat on a thing. Then they'll just put kind of like some salad stuff in it, a tomato. And if you want, you can get it super spicy. Depending on where you go or how long you've had spicy food, it can be anywhere from mild to burn your face off. I once had one and I couldn't taste the rest of the thing because I took one bite and it was just so hot. But yeah, but a lot of people that are in Cologne are from, there's Germans, and then there's also a lot of people from Turkey, Romania, Bulgaria, you name it. Most East European countries will migrate to, because Cologne is right next to what's called the Ruhrgebiet, the industrial area of Germany, where a lot of people came for work because there's a lot of stuff going on there. There's a lot of car manufacturers, a lot of coal back in the day, and just a lot of power plants and stuff is all in this area right next to Cologne. And so people will come here and go work there in the Ruhrgebiet. The thing is with German is they have a lot of words that are just kind of like ich, and sort of they roll the R's and everything. So like I guess in English, in an terrible English accent, you know, like ich bin dankbar hier zu sein, and that means I'm grateful to be here. And you know, in the English it's like ich bin dankbar hier zu sein, and it's just really strong. A lot of people will say that Americans, we talk like we've got a potato in our mouth because we open our mouths so wide, and the Germans, they keep their mouths very closed. I mean, I guess in Germany you say ich bin dankbar hier zu sein, and it's a lot more closed, a lot less stronger R's, more softer. You know, ich bin dankbar hier zu sein und ich freue mich einfach ein gutes Leben zu führen. And in, you know, if English you'd be like ich bin dankbar hier zu sein und ich freue mich ein, oh man, that hurts, frohes Leben zu führen. It's just, you can just hear the difference because the English just don't pronounce things the same, because there's a lot of those little two dots in front. They're called umlauts, and people don't always understand what they mean. Like I didn't until I learned German, and it's different for every language. But